it's time for the next session, and this is going to be on Mendix Native Mobile. So we'll dive right into it, and let's answer questions about Native Mobile. And who better to do that than the Mobile Dream Team, Danny Roest, Product Manager Mobile, and David Brault, Product Marketing Manager. Guys, welcome to the session.
Thank you,
Thanks
Jan.
for your kind words.
Yeah,
so it's been an incredible year for mobile and Native Mobile. Mendix 8, the public launch for Native Mobile, and now we're taking it to the next level with Mendix 9. So what do you think here from what Johan announced and what you demoed earlier in the keynote is the biggest announcement here for developers? What is the most important thing that they should pay attention to?
Yeah, what I personally really like is the whole new UI for building your mobile apps. When we released Native Mobile, we wanted to make it possible for customers to release to the App Store. However, it was still technical. You needed to use the command line. And now we're creating a whole UI for that. And what you've seen in the keynote is still only the beginning. So definitely stay tuned for more. But basically what we're doing here is something that is complex everywhere. Like when you're doing mobile app development, doesn't matter whether it's low code or not, like being able to build your binaries, to compile the source code to the binaries which can be published to the App Store. That process is complex. There's a lot of settings. You normally need all these tools, and we just created a simple UI abstraction on top of that, so that basically everybody can just build it after they created their model, build that binary, and publish it to the App Store. And I think that's something I'm personally really proud of. It looks great. It's also the tooling is really nice. It's self-updating. So also if Apple would come or Android would come with new regulations, also the UI will automatically update so that you can use new features. So
excellent. And so before I ask you the same question, David, I want to talk to the audience. Guys, if you have any questions about Native Mobile, about the announcements, or you want to know, what these guys had for breakfast, we can talk about that. Go to the MXW live channel on the Mendix World Slack, and click the lightning icon, click ask a question, and submit it, and then we'll see it on our end, and then we can try to answer it as best as we can. All right. So David, from your side, compared to sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead. Please.
What I'm most excited about is the ability for Mendix to allow you to have the best of both worlds when it comes to building mobile applications. If you think about it, you can really distill mobile applications into two camps or two types. Like there's App Store based, you have your native and your hybrid. Then you have browser based, which would be your PWA and just your traditional responsive web. But the fact that we allow you to build the best of both worlds for each of those. So native is, so far superior to hybrid, and PWA is much better than traditional responsive web. The fact that we give you this best of breed approach, where you can say, I just need to figure out what kind of application is it. Is it an App Store based app? Is it a browser based mobile app? And we allow you to deploy the best of those both worlds. That's what's most exciting to me.
Excellent. Yeah. And so continuing on that thread of what you said about PWA, right? Progressive web apps. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the difference is here between PWA and a native mobile app?
Sure. That's $1 million question, so much so that Gartner put out some research on all the pros and cons of the 4 different traditional types of mobile architectures, from traditional web to PWA to hybrid and native. It's actually an article called Key Considerations When Building Mobile Applications. If you want to download a free copy of it, if you just Google Mendix Gartner Key Considerations, it should come to the top of your search results. You can get a free copy of it. Regardless, the answer is depends. It's really based on use case and certain factors. And I actually cover this, and I have a session called Establishing Your Mobile Architecture Strategy where I go into more depth on this. But if I was to distill that 20-minute session into 30-second answer, it really comes down to UX, device integration, and App Store dependency. native, require, if you have applications that require a stunning user experience, a lot of device integration, and you have to have it in an app store, native's the way to go. PWA allows you to reduce that barrier for downloads, allows people to freely install it without having to go to an app store. They're lighter weight. They do have more integration to the device than a traditional responsive web. So it's a little bit better in that sense, but not at all near the device integration that you would get with a native application. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add to that, Danny, but.
No, good arguments there.
And honestly, one thing to add there, some people say, do I go one way or the other? There's quite honestly many situations where you may have to use both. I don't know if you've ever been on a mobile website and it says, hey, click here to download the mobile app, native mobile app, so you can have more functionality. And sometimes you have to have the reverse where people need to save room on their devices and they have to start uninstalling their native applications to save room. Well, when they have to use your company's mobile application, you want to make sure that it's the best browser experience possible, since they can no longer run the native version.
Right. All right, let's see if we have any more questions coming in. So first question here is, within the new Mendix 9, will you be able to manage the signing certificates and the versions of them for Mendix Native Mobile apps?
Simply put, yes. You can upload them, and they will also be validated whether they are correct, and will also automatically be configured when building.
Excellent. Short and sweet. That's how I like it. I should add that he added a happy smiley behind it. So, question here: did you watch the keynote from your desktop, or did you watch it from your mobile phones?
I watch mine from the desktop, and I have 2 teenage daughters, and they make fun of me that I watch everything on my desktop, where they're always on their phones. Right? I can't look at that little 5-inch screen when I'm watching videos. So my old eyes. They require a bigger screen. How about you, Danny?
I also watched it on a big screen. I loved it. It's really nice to watch it like that. So,
yeah, definitely made for the big screen. Yeah. Right. So next question again about PWA. With the introduction of PWA, there are now 3 ways to build mobile apps: hybrid, native, and PWA. And add the options for online, offline, and that makes it very complex to decide an approach. So it kind of ties back to what you were talking about earlier, David. How do you plan to address that for new users? Because if we keep adding all these options, are we going to give them guidance, or how are we going to do that?
Yeah, some of the things like David already said. Native mobile is really the best of breed when you look at App Store mobile applications, and you want to have the best control and the best user experience. And also something we already predicted and see happening is that the market is slowly leaving hybrid mobile. That was also one of the reasons that we started with native mobile development to offer future-proof technology. So hybrid mobile, we will start deprecating. More details on that will follow. Don't worry, it will still be supported in Mendix 8 and 9, so you will not run into issues. But we really see the combination of native mobile apps and progressive web apps as the future. Then when you talk about these differences, native mobile, that's always built with an offline first approach. You can build your app, they always work regardless of a connection. And it is not per se always about a connection, it's basically the new baseline for mobile app development. Make sure your apps always work great. Now for progressive web apps, we'll take that a bit more lighter. Basically, we'll have there 2 variants. Depending on your need, it could be that you just want to have a faster web app that quickly loads, uses a device capability, etc. So then you can build it, but it still requires partial internet connection, or you will have the option to build it fully offline. So basically, then if you look for mobile, there will be 3 options. So you have native mobile, and you have progressive web apps like the simple variant, or a full offline variant of it.
Right. And the good news there as well is we try to help maximize reuse between all of them. So if you decide to take one approach and decide that's not the right one, or your users tell you it's the wrong one, it's not like you have to reinvent the wheel to go to that next approach.
Right. And you can use them next to each other.
Exactly, as I mentioned before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So another good question here is SSO is still not part of native mobile. Are there any plans for a SAML integration or SAML support in the near future?
Yes, we actually started working on it. So also with expert services, we already created the initial version, which we're trying out at customers now. And we're now in the process to fully productize it in Q4, so in the upcoming quarter. To make it easy, it will also be a separate module which you can easily configure and also even adjust for the other types, as the concept is quite generic. If you have more questions on that, please contact me and so that we can also help you and maybe even help you to an early build.
All right. What is the best way to ask you guys questions about this beyond this live session? Is that through Slack or email or?
Slack is fine. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah. So everyone here in the call and everyone in Mendix World is available on Slack during the event. And so, yeah, you can just use the MXW live channel to ask questions or hit some people up directly. Right. So on to the next question. Will it be possible to synchronize a single object from a nano flow to the server? If so, when?
That's actually something we are working on. It's also planned for the Q4. So it's already possible the other way around, to only synchronize a single object from the server to the device and to really give all that control to only upload a single object to the server. That's something we're currently working on. You can already use microflows to already send data directly to the server.
Excellent. Yeah. Can you tell something about native apps and SSO with, for example, Azure AD and B2C?
Yeah, so the module we're working on for SSO will be a generic module which you can use for the different types of identity providers or ways to use it.
All right, that's excellent. So there's no specific different.
No, the main focus will be on SAML as we see the most use there. There will also be support for the Mendix SSO module, but the concept is quite generic. You can also apply it for the other authentication mechanisms.
Excellent. Just making it easy for people.
We try to.
So what would be your suggested approach for making a native app in combination with a microservices or a multi-app structure? So would you dedicate one app to your native functionalities? And how does native offline work in combination with information coming out of Data Hub? So I think those are two separate questions. So let's see if we can answer the first one.
No, it's a bit of a combination.
Okay.
We also, at this moment, we have a customer. I cannot name it publicly now, but it's also a large customer. They're also creating a whole microservices architecture because they have basically different departments, different functionality they want to offer. So they have different apps to manage these different functionality and created one mobile app on top of that basically synchronizes the data with the apps below and one optimized mobile interface to access all these features. So you can see it as a pyramid. On top, you have the mobile app that has its Mendix backend, which communicates with other backends.
Right. Okay. Well, that sounds good. I thought that was going to be a longer answer, but like you had it ready right there.
Now, we just discussed it last week, and it's a solution that works pretty well for them already.
Right. So any news on a theme creator for the new resource package model, specifically for native apps?
I'm not exactly sure what it meant. So, but as mentioned in the keynote, we are releasing Atlas UI 3, which will be a new theme for both mobile and web. They are aligned. There's a lot of research behind it, a lot more consistency, also more modern. We also have a plan to create like a generic theme creator for both web apps and native mobile apps, but that's something for the 2021.
All right. So at least something to look forward to. And I mean, it's already September, so how far away is it really? You know. Right. So I think someone's asking a very interesting question. That is, David, what guitar solo reflects your latest Gartner Mobile Mendix success?
Well, I'm a huge Dream Theater fan. So anything off of so John Petrucci is just a guitar god in my mind. Don't ask me to try to replicate anything he plays. Metropolis Part 1, something off Under a Glass Moon, maybe something like that. Thanks.
All right, excellent. Maybe in one of the other sessions we can do some jamming.
Quite possible.
So right now, it's not possible to implement SSO on a native mobile app with SUML. This is on the backlog. I think we covered this, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
we're working on it. It's planned for Q4. And if you have more questions on it in details, work it out, because we also implement it as a separate module. So it doesn't require any platform changes. It really builds on top of our whole pluggable approach, basically.
Right. So we do have a follow-up question on the PWA. So what is the best way to build an application that uses your camera, but is very database driven?
My initial guess would say mobile, a native mobile app. Why is that? First of all, you have more control on the camera, what you can use. If you look at the web technology, you have less control on the resolution of the picture you take. Basically, your viewpoint is the resolution of the picture. Whereas if you access the native device functionality in a native mobile app, you can use full resolution.
Right. Yeah, I think that's an important consideration, definitely. Yeah. So how do you approach versioning of mobile apps when it comes to server logic and data? And also that that local stored data that can be of an older version. So not all users will update their app. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, there are multiple versions of multiple things to consider there. And it's still when you build a mobile app, you still have basically the front end and the mobile app that's on the device, and the back end, the Mendix runtime. So you need to be aware of backwards compatibility, because indeed customers can still run an older version. So we have an offline first document that describes best practices for this. And to put it simply, don't delete or rename entities or attributes, or rename or move microflows. There's also something we'll add more support to easily detect it in the future. And also, if there are issues, for example, with synchronizing data. So, for example, I have some data of an inspection on my mobile device, and I synchronize that to the server, but that inspection doesn't exist anymore, that entity doesn't exist anymore, it has been deleted, or it has been renamed, or I don't have access to it anymore. Even then, still the data will be backed up. So even if you could consider it as a modeling error, but it is something tricky, we still back up that data, so you can always restore it if it's needed. But indeed, it is something to think of. The other thing we're also working on is improved over-the-air support. So once you open the mobile app, it will automatically fetch your latest app model. So then also give you more options to force to be in sync with the model on your device and the model on the server.
Right. So there are ways around it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you need to be aware of it, but we also will greatly reduce the chance by automatically providing users a new version of the model. Of course, if you are offline, you cannot get that model, but then the day after you probably can.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, so moving on to the next one. Right now, building a native app only supports PNG files for splash screens. Are there plans to turn that into, GIFs or GIFs? I don't want to offend anyone. Or will can we make animated splash screens, basically?
It's a good question. I do not have the answer right now yet. It's the first time we got this question. So it's definitely something we will consider. So we did make some improvements there with the splash screen, and that you got at least a splash screen shown until the first element is drawn on the screen, or basically your first page is rendered. Also to improve the experience, that you don't have like a white screen or something. But it could indeed be a nice feature to show something else than a static splash screen. So yeah, definitely something we will consider.
All right. Going into a little bit of specifics, why is it not possible to delete an object or a list from a nano flow?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's not something we don't want. It's something we didn't came to it yet. So it is possible by using a flag to mark something as deleted and then delete it on the server. Why we did it initially is also to make sure that if you delete something on the device, that on the server you can still always track, okay, this object was deleted and maybe I want to back it up or do some conflict resolutions there. However, we do want to make it simpler so that we will add support for deleting in offline apps, therefore.
Excellent.
That will be a bit later, early next year.
Right. So another good question here is, would it be possible to disable the refresh in client action in the NanoFlow commit object like it is in microflows?
I do not fully understand. And it might refer to that if you commit an object, that it will automatically be refreshed on the device. I'm just assuming something. So if you change an object, you commit it, and it's also shown in the list, it will automatically be updated, for example. That is something we're actually discussing. For now, we like the behavior that it automatically updates, and that for a lot of people, it can be nice. However, there are also cases where you want to have more control. And on one end, we already added 2 new refresh activities. So we have refresh entity and refresh object. If you want to refresh it programmatically, but to not automatically refresh, it's not something that happens now. But we are looking into, for example, that you don't, if you have a list view, that you only see data from the database and not from the cache. It is something we are discussing, but no concrete dates on that yet, because we also want to keep it simple.
Right. Yeah. So you have someone here who just wants to confirm something you said earlier about SSO. Does it also support OAuth 2?
Yeah, the mechanism will be quite generic. So we have to look in the details on that. So I have to get back on that in the release. So the main first focus will be on SAML and the Mendix SSO module. It should also be possible to use it with OAuth 2, but we could make improvements to support also OAuth 2.
Perfect.
But not in the first version, like full out-of-the-box support yet.
Yeah. So another question here is, will over-the-air updates be available outside Microsoft App Center in the future?
Yes, very good question. We'll take the same approach as we do for hybrid. It's something we are currently working on, that if you deploy a new model to the Mendix Cloud or to your on-premise environment, it will also create a new bundle for the mobile app. And at startup, your mobile app connects to your runtime, and then it will automatically fetch that bundle. So we'll change it that you do not need that dependency on Microsoft App Center.
Right. All right. So next question here is, how do we need to handle download content and view it in a native mobile app? This person says, I think it's not there as an out-of-the-box functionality.
Yeah, currently you can download things like images, so that works out of the box. Adding support for a wider type of documents like PDF viewing is something on the roadmap, probably for the end of year or begin next year. However, there's also a couple of customers did integrate this also, but it's a bit more technical. You need to add a React Native module, but then it's definitely possible, and that's also in the App Store, so you can definitely check that out. It's created by Marcel Groeneweg from IT Advisors, also an example project.
Yeah. Excellent. So will the graphical builder for native apps also support over-the-air update builds?
No, it will be separate from it. So if you look at now the command line, that's part of the command line, but it will now become part of the model. of your Studio Pro. So basically, if you deploy an app to the cloud, it will automatically also bundle it and put it in there. So you don't even need the native builder UI for that.
All right. So I just want to tell the audience, if you still have any questions, we've got about 4 minutes left before the end of the session. So make sure you submit your question on time so we can get to it. Of course, when the session's over, we will be available on Slack and on the Mendix forum, and keep an eye on your questions so we can answer as many as possible. But right now, let's get to the next one. So recently, layout grids have been added to native pages. Will it soon include breakpoints for tablet and phone screen sizes the way that we know for web layout grids?
Good question. It's the first time we heard about it, or we got that question. It's something we did consider, as we also have it for web. So it also depends on the needs. We're really looking at, okay, what do our customers need and prioritize based on that. So if there is a need for that, then it's definitely something we'll consider.
Excellent. All right. So another question / statement here is native mobile is being promoted as the way to go. However, a lot of the functionality is released in the latest studio versions, and the recommended latest studio production version is Mendix 8.6. So, right now we're at, I think it's 8.13. If, for instance, SSO or other new functionality is required, is in that case hybrid still the best way to go?
So Mendix 8.12 is also the medium-term supported release. So that's also the one we now advise customers to use, so not 8.6 anymore. So in that sense, we'll definitely upgrade to 8.12. With respect to hybrid or native mobile, it is already possible with native mobile. Like I said, but we don't have it out of the box, but we did have customers already implement it. And the advice from R&D is really not to start new projects with hybrid anymore. And you will basically creating your technical debt today. So our advice, if you run into issues there, contact us to see how we can help you. But definitely do not start with hybrid mobile apps now anymore.
Right. All right. We have time for one last question. So let's see. Question here is, a lot of our customers work close together with SAP. And regarding SSO, we are using XSUAA authentication and not SAML. So will this be possible with native too? Yeah,
that's a similar approach. That approach can be used similar as we will implement with the new SSO module.
Excellent. Right. Okay. One last question. Are there any pluggable widgets or pluggable widget examples that show how to work with complex large data sets, like getting data over multiple XPath retrieves and being able to visualize this, and something that also works on Mendix Native Mobile specifically?
Yeah, so actually we're currently working on charts ourselves to also full-fledged charts, but also the example that was shown in the keynote, the maps example for the municipality of Rotterdam was created by GemIT. That also uses a lot of data. Basically, that also shows a map with all kinds of, for example, streetlights. And there are many streetlights, for example, in Rotterdam. And they also need to work with that and use that. And what's good to know, it depends on whether it's web or native. But for web, we also optimize the data fetching. So if you only ask for 2 attributes, you don't get the whole object is sent to the client, but only the data you actually need. So in that sense, it's already optimized for that. And there are already examples there.
Excellent. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time answering these questions. It's been my pleasure. I hope we'll be seeing more from you guys in the future in coming updates. And of course, looking forward to Mendix 9. Now, if you're watching this and you had a question and we didn't get to it, don't worry. We'll be online for the whole week on Slack, on the Mendix forum. So hit us up and we'll try to answer your questions. So with that, we will conclude the AMA for native mobile. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Enjoy the conference.